very close to here. And a couple of weeks ago, we collected this specimen here in Zion. Hard to see. This is the back end of a coelacanth skull and some other coelacanth skull bones. This is now in our lab at St. George, where we're prepping the specimen. Jim Kirkland and I are in the process of naming this new kind of coelacanth, which we have a lot of at St. George, at our track site. Okay. All right, moving up into the Cantor Formation. Like I said, nothing really in the way of bones, but lots of beautiful tracks. This is a slab. This comes from the same slab in Collab Canyon. This was found nearby. And then this was kind of on the western edge of the park. You can see these 4 large toes. It's a very big footprints, and we're finding them all over southwestern Utah in the Cantor Formation, and they're not found anywhere else. We think this is probably a new footprint type, which we may eventually name. And then a spectacular track site on the hike, the subway hike. It's called the Subway Track Site. You can see all these huge Eubrontes footprints on these massive slabs. Yeah, just covering. And these big slabs have actually fallen from the cliff way up. So pretty spectacular track site. I've never visited it myself. This is one that Connor, who just introduced me, recently documented and did photogrammetry on. And you can see these small footprints right here. These are animals that were actually walking on a sand dune surface. And of course, this is a fallen block from the cliff, and maybe the counterpart. So you're seeing both sides of the slab split open. This is another specimen that was collected near Snow Canyon, which is in our museum. It's another Brazil ichneum trackway. So these were possibly made by our critters right over here, the Tritylodons. That's what's suggested that may have produced them. All right, so this is, and here's Connor's photogrammetry. Super cool. Nice to see this stuff coming out. Connor's big time involved with that work here in the park now, doing photogrammetry of the many documented sites in the park and looking for new sites as well. All right, so now we're moving east. I'm going to get to the meat of it. So on Lake Powell, this is a really rough strat section from one of Martin Lockley's publications. You can see the position of all of these different kinds of footprints, from the Cutler group, from the lower Permian, all the way up to the late Jurassic. You can find footprints. And again, we're going to be concentrating on this area. So, Lake Powell. So, John Wesley Powell in the summer of '69 named Glen Canyon. He actually made 2 trips down the canyon. This is John Wesley Powell here. And of course, now we have the Glen Canyon Dam. I would love to get a copy of this book. It's so hard to find, and it's full of pictures, but I've not been able to find a copy of it. I took a photograph on one of the boats that was at Lake Powell that somebody had, and I've looked for it online, and I cannot find it. So if anyone gets a lead, let me know. I'd love to go. In 1904, discoveries of footprints at Lee's Ferry, and here you can see some old pictures right here of the discovery from a magazine that Martin Lockley had shown to me. Pretty amazing track surfaces. Also, Rainbow Bridge, and this guy, Charles Bernheimer, in '24 led multiple expeditions around the Glen Canyon region, southeastern Utah. Of course, it was a lot rougher to get around there, and of course, they documented Rainbow Bridge. He didn't actually record any footprints, but this is my photograph of this particular track. And our volunteer, David Sloff, when he was there recently, noticed another footprint just behind it that no one else had seen before. We only thought there was one footprint at this site. And so we probably need to go back and take another look. This clicker's not happy. Oh, there we go. Wow, I'm having all kinds of problems. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. So there were tracks from Glen Canyon featured in National Geographic in 1967. This is from the magazine. And there's also specimens on display in front of the Page Museum. They've got a beautiful slab in front of that museum. And there's me standing next to the one in front of the Interpretive Center at Glen Canyon at the dam. This is Martin Lockley's map I compared it with the footprint. They're a little off. I think it needs to be remapped, but still a pretty good job. So you need to kind of rotate it this way, and it kind of shows you the arrangement of the footprints. So these come from an area called Explorer Canyon, which I have never explored. This guy, Dr. Mark Lockley, published his first paper in 1998 on tracks, but he's been working there for a long time. Of course, professor at the University of Colorado at Denver, now retired. And you can see, look at all of the track sites in his, from his work. He's recorded around Lake Powell. So he spent tons of time on this lake and recorded so many amazing sites, working with the National Park Service, doing an incredible job. This block right here, I thought I found a new site this spring in April, March. This is the same block. And you can see the water level. There's Martin standing in the water, looking at this exact same slab. So I thought we recorded a new site, but it's not. Anyway, but what we did do, since Jack Wood was with us, we managed to do photogrammetry of the entire surface. So now we have a computerized 3D model of the entire track surface, so we can then compare it in maybe future years to see how the block is degrading, to see how these resources. You can see, look how far back the lake is, like way, way back there. And there's one of the really cool footprints right there on the slab, beautiful footprints, amazing slab. This area is just covered in tracks. So what these beds represent in here are actual pond lake deposits, interdunal lakes. So lakes like you saw that Sahara picture, in between all of these giant sand dunes. And where you've got this, of course, you get lots of life, you get plants growing, you get animals coming to drink the water and stuff like that, leaving their footprints behind and occasionally dying, as we've just found. Now this guy, Dr. Vince Santucci, thanks to Jim Kirkland, Vince is the lead paleontologist for the National Park Service, working in Washington, D.C. And I met him after all of this work by the Utah Geological Survey, along with the Park Service and Martin Lockley, documenting track sites and doing assessments, basically to see how the park can manage the rich resources, especially track sites in Glen Canyon. It is so rich. So very soon after this photo was taken at the John Wesley Powell track walk, which is the paper that just published, Vince called me up, and in 2010, I was on my way to go and start my first work at Lake Powell. And here you can see that MTB represents the John Wesley Powell track walk. It's MTB because it used to be called the Mega Track Walk. So we like John Wesley Powell track walk better. And then that other picture, Lockley's Cove, was that big fallen slab. And then other areas we've been working, Antelope Island near Page, Labyrinth Island, incredible stuff. Good Hope Bay, where we've been finding bone sites in the Chin Lee. So lots of really, really cool fossil sites on the lake. So what? Oh yeah, Andre's alcove, very important. So talking about Andre's alcove, you can see this is an aerial view. These surfaces in all of these big craggy cliff areas, you can see these big flat surfaces of carbonates in these dune sequences. These are covered in footprints. This is taken from a 27-foot camera mast, both of these photographs looking at Area 1. There's David, Maria, Mike Callahan, and Connor taking the picture. That's why he's not looking at the camera. Anyway, these are kind of views of those surfaces. And what we found there are they're covered in footprints. So on these surfaces right here. So you can see small graulator type footprints like these guys, and then we have big theropods. They're really hard to see. This was a beautiful fallen block, which was found down here. It had probably fallen out from a ledge underneath. So there are additional track surfaces below the main track layer. So you can see the problem with this surface. It's really difficult to see the tracks. So this is where photogrammetry comes in. We did a photogrammetry, thousands and thousands of photographs of the entire surface. And these guys, along with myself, Dr. Gary Harris, who's here heckling me in the back over there, and Connor beating on a coelacanth fish out of the rock right here. This is here in Zion. Anyway, we published this paper not long ago. So this is a very preliminary study, but now the next step is to do a big detailed study like what we did for the John Wesley